Be still. Stop scrolling. Silence the noise around you and within you. Give me this moment fully, because this is not random and it is not accidental that you are here, listening now. I am speaking to you in this precise moment because you have already walked through something that should have broken you, and yet you remain. That alone tells me what fear can no longer do to you. Fear once spoke loudly, claiming authority over your thoughts, your decisions, your future. But now it hesitates, because you have faced loss, pressure, and uncertainty, and you lived. You breathed through it. You endured nights you did not think you would survive, and still you woke up. Fear lost its leverage the moment you realized you could be wounded and still standing. Hear me clearly. You are not fragile because you were hurt. You are not weak because something tried to undo you. You are here because strength was forming in you, even when you felt empty, confused, or barely holding yourself together. The fact that you are still open, still listening, still willing to engage, tells me that what was meant to end you has instead positioned you. I did not waste your pain. I did not overlook your tears. Nothing you endured was meaningless. I need you to understand this before we go any further. Growth does not always announce itself. It does not always feel powerful or victorious. Often it happens quietly, under pressure, while you are convinced you are falling apart. While you were focused on what you lost, something within you was being built without your permission. You did not celebrate it. You did not recognize it, but it was happening. So pause with me here. Breathe. Let your guard lower just enough to hear what comes next. Because what you survived did not weaken you. It prepared you. And what I am about to lead you into requires exactly the strength you did not know you were developing. Listen to me carefully now, because this is where your understanding must deepen. I was with you in the moments you thought were undoing you. I watched you move through days where survival was the only goal, where getting through the next hour felt like an achievement. You believed you were breaking, but what was actually happening was a restructuring. I was not allowing you to remain who you were, because who you were could not carry what is ahead. You mistook pressure for punishment, but pressure was the tool. I do not waste adversity. I use it to reveal what comfort never could. While you were asking me to remove the weight, I was strengthening your internal frame so the weight would no longer crush you. That is why fear no longer works the way it used to. It still tries to speak, but it no longer has authority because you already know you can survive what once terrified you. You learned discernment in ways you never would have chosen. Before, you trusted easily, explained away red flags, and gave the benefit of the doubt even when your spirit was uneasy. Pain taught you to notice what words alone cannot hide. You began to recognize patterns, energy, and intent without needing evidence handed to you neatly. What once took months of confusion now takes moments of clarity. This is not hardness. This is wisdom. I sharpened your perception because the next season of your life requires accuracy. You will not have the luxury of ignorance disguised as kindness anymore. I needed you to see clearly, to sense misalignment quickly, and to walk away without second-guessing yourself. That awareness was forged when trust was broken, when promises were empty, and when you were forced to rely on your inner knowing rather than external reassurance. You also grew in emotional depth, though it did not feel like growth at the time. You felt heavier, more sensitive, more aware of suffering, both yours and others. But what was actually happening was expansion. You learned how pain sounds when it is unspoken. You learned how silence can carry more truth than words. You learned how to listen without rushing to fix, how to sit with discomfort without escaping it. That capacity did not come from ease. It came from nights where no one could save you from feeling what you felt. Now you carry empathy without losing yourself in it. You understand others without absorbing their chaos. This depth will allow you to connect without collapsing, to care without overgiving, and to love without abandoning your own needs. Strength also took root in you, but not the kind you once admired. You used to believe strength was loud, confident, visible. You thought it announced itself with certainty and momentum. What I gave you instead was quieter. It endures. It shows up even when outcomes are unclear. It keeps moving forward without applause. You learned how to continue without validation, how to trust your footing even when no one else could see your progress. This strength does not rush. It does not prove. It does not panic when things slow down. It simply remains. That is the kind of strength that sustains purpose over time, not just excitement at the beginning. You also became more aware of yourself, and this was one of the most important shifts. You began to recognize your limits, your patterns, and your needs. You learned the cost of ignoring yourself. You learned what happens when you say yes while your spirit is saying no. You learned that peace is not a luxury to be earned later, but a requirement for alignment now. I allowed you to feel the consequences of self-betrayal, so you would stop offering it as a sacrifice. You are no longer impressed by what once distracted you because you understand the price it demanded. You learned to protect your energy, your time, and your inner world not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. You sometimes mourn the version of yourself that existed before everything became complicated. You remember your simplicity, your openness, your unguarded hope. But listen to me. You did not lose your softness. You learned how to protect it. You did not become cold. You became selective. You did not become weaker. You became intentional. Innocence was not stolen from you. Insight was added to you. What you call being changed is actually being refined. I am not interested in preserving who you were if who you were could not survive what you are being prepared to hold. The weight of what is coming requires stability, not naivety. It requires grounding, not impulse. There were seasons where you felt like you were barely holding yourself together, where progress felt invisible and effort felt wasted. But growth does not always feel like forward motion. Sometimes it feels like resistance, like pressure, like confinement. Roots grow downward before anything appears above the surface. While you felt stuck, you were being anchored. While you felt delayed, you were being fortified. I needed your growth to be deep, not performative. Shallow growth collapses under responsibility. Deep growth holds steady when expectations rise. Do not measure what I have done in you by how you felt during the process. Feelings fluctuate. They respond to fatigue, disappointment, and uncertainty. Instead, look at how you respond now compared to before. Notice how you pause instead of reacting, how you think before committing, how you walk away from what drains you without the guilt that once trapped you. Notice how you no longer chase what does not choose you, how you no longer argue with clarity when it arrives. These are not small changes. These are signs of maturity. These are indicators that something in you has settled into place. You did not fall behind. You did not waste time. You did not miss your moment. You were being prepared quietly while you thought nothing was happening. I was strengthening your inner structure so that when opportunity, responsibility, and expansion arrive, you will not fracture under the weight. What is coming will require discernment more than enthusiasm, endurance more than speed, and depth more than impulse. That is why your growth was slow, hidden, and often uncomfortable. Understand this now so you stop doubting what I have already completed in you. What tried to break you revealed your capacity. What wounded you refined your vision. What exhausted you taught you sustainability. You are not carrying scars as evidence of damage. You are carrying them as proof of adaptation. You are stronger now, not because life became easier, but because you became more grounded. Stay present with me here. Let this truth settle. The strength you need is not something you must still earn. It is already in you, formed under pressure, anchored by experience, and ready to support what comes next without destroying you. Listen to me and stay here with me, because this is where your patience was tested the most, and where misunderstanding almost convinced you to give up. There were long stretches where nothing seemed to move, where days blended together and progress felt invisible. You waited and waited, and the waiting began to feel like rejection. You wondered if you had missed your moment, if time was slipping away while you stood still, if your faith was being wasted on silence. But I need you to hear this clearly now. Your waiting was not empty, and it was not ignored. It was intentional. I do not delay without purpose. I do not pause a life without preparation happening beneath the surface. You assumed that waiting meant inactivity, that nothing was happening simply because you could not see results. But alignment requires precision, not speed. Timing is not casual. There are intersections in your life that must arrive together, not separately. People, opportunities, understanding, and capacity must meet at the same moment, or the outcome collapses under its own weight. If one arrives too early, it overwhelms you. If one arrives too late, it loses its impact. So while you were waiting, other things were being positioned. Circumstances were shifting, hearts were changing, paths were being cleared. You were not stuck. You were being held in place until everything else caught up. Waiting also exposed what you truly trusted. When immediate results disappeared, you were forced to confront what sustained you when reassurance was absent. Did you trust momentum, or did you trust process? Did you trust outcomes, or did you trust character and consistency? I stripped away shortcuts because shortcuts create fragile faith. You learned how to sit with uncertainty without running from it. You learned how to show up without guarantees. That kind of faith is not dramatic, but it is durable. And durability matters far more than intensity when life stretches longer than you expected. I know waiting made you question your worth. You watched others move ahead and wondered why your life felt paused. You compared timelines and silently asked if you were being overlooked or forgotten. But waiting is not a verdict on your value. It is a statement about readiness. What is coming requires stability, clarity, and endurance. Those cannot be rushed without consequence. If I had released certain things earlier, they would have crushed you instead of completing you. I was not withholding to punish you. I was protecting you from carrying weight before your foundation was strong enough. Waiting also protected you from settling. Relief that arrives too quickly often tempts compromise. If something had come simply to ease your discomfort, you might have accepted what was close, but not aligned. Comfort can blur discernment. I needed you to learn how to wait without grabbing, how to desire without desperation. Waiting strengthened your ability to choose wisely when options finally appear. It trained you to recognize what fits rather than what is merely available. That discernment will save you from repeating cycles you already survived. There were moments when you felt restless, frustrated, even resentful. You asked why others seemed to move forward effortlessly while you remained in place. But what you could not see was the internal shift taking place. Waiting expanded your capacity. It removed urgency that once distorted your judgment. It replaced anxiety with steadiness. You are more grounded now, less reactive, less willing to chase what costs you your peace. That change did not happen by accident. It happened because you stayed when it would have been easier to quit. Delay is not denial, it is refinement. It is preparation. It is the slow unfolding of something that needs depth rather than haste. You were not being ignored, you were being shaped. While you waited, your tolerance for instability decreased, your clarity increased, your standards rose. You stopped begging life to hurry and started trusting yourself to hold what arrives. That shift matters more than you realize. Waiting also forced you to confront silence. Without constant movement, your thoughts grew louder. Doubts surfaced. Old fears tried to return. But instead of running, you stayed. You learned how to be present without distraction. You learned how to listen inwardly rather than constantly seeking external affirmation. That inner anchoring will sustain you when life accelerates again. Speed without grounding would have pulled you apart. Now you can move without losing yourself. You may not have recognized it at the time, but waiting trained your nervous system to remain calm in uncertainty. You no longer panic when answers are delayed. You no longer interpret stillness as failure. You have learned that not every season is meant for visible growth. Some seasons are for strengthening roots, recalibrating direction, and removing dependence on external validation. That work cannot be rushed. I know you sometimes resent the time you believe you lost, but listen to me. You did not lose time. You gained readiness. You gained clarity. You gained resilience. When what you have been waiting for finally arrives, you will not approach it from desperation or fear. You will meet it from stability. You will recognize it without forcing it. You will not cling to it. You will steward it. The waiting did not diminish you. It expanded you. It slowed you down so your life could speed up later without destroying you. One day you will look back and realize that the pause was not an interruption, but an intervention. It kept you from building on unstable ground. It kept you from committing to paths that would have required you to shrink. So do not resent the waiting. Do not dismiss it as wasted time. It was the space where you became ready for what you once thought you were ready for long ago. And when what you have been waiting for finally arrives, it will feel steady, not rushed. It will feel clear, not confusing. You will know deeply, unmistakably, that the waiting was never wasted. Listen to me closely now, because this is where your expectations must be realigned if you are going to move forward without confusion or disappointment. I am not bringing you back to what was. I am leading you into what can be. I know there is a part of you that longs for familiar ground, for the version of life that felt simpler, safer, or more predictable. You imagine restoration as reversal, as though healing means returning to the exact place where things went wrong and rewriting the ending. But hear me clearly. Restoration is not regression. I do not rebuild the same structure on the same foundation when that foundation could not hold the weight you are meant to carry now. You have changed, whether you fully acknowledge it or not. The life ahead of you must be able to sustain who you are now, not who you used to be. The old framework of your life could not accommodate the awareness you carry, the boundaries you have learned to honor, or the discernment you now possess. If I restored everything exactly as it was, you would quickly feel confined, restless, and misaligned. What once fit you would begin to feel too small, too fragile, too shallow. That is not healing. That is nostalgia disguised as hope. I am not interested in returning you to comfort that limits you. I am committed to building a future that matches your growth. You often measure restoration by familiarity, by whether something looks, sounds, or feels like what you lost. But true restoration often feels unfamiliar at first, because it requires you to live from a deeper place than before. It calls for greater responsibility, greater self-trust, and greater intentionality. You are not being restored simply to survive again. You are being restored to live with clarity and purpose. That means the structure of your life must evolve, the rhythms must change, the expectations must mature. The way you relate to people, opportunities, and yourself must reflect the wisdom you have gained. Understand this. What you lost belonged to a previous season of your development. It served you then, but it cannot define you now. You are not meant to carry forward the same patterns, the same compromises, or the same emotional dependencies. Those things may have felt normal once, but they no longer align with the person you are becoming. If I were to restore them unchanged, you would eventually have to outgrow them again, and the cycle would repeat. That is why some things will return differently, and others will not return at all. Not because you are being punished, but because you are being upgraded. Your future requires stronger foundations, clearer agreements, healthier connections, and more sustainable rhythms. I am inviting you into a life that does not constantly drain you, confuse you, or keep you guessing about your worth. That life cannot be built from the same blueprint that collapsed before. I know it can be unsettling to release the image of going back. It can feel like letting go of closure, justice, or validation. But closure does not come from repetition. It comes from understanding. And understanding is growing in you now. You are beginning to see that what you truly want is not the past restored, but peace secured. Not old doors reopened, but new doors that open without resistance. You are realizing that familiarity is not the same as alignment, and comfort is not the same as wholeness. I am not taking you backward to prove something. I am carrying you forward to become something more grounded, more whole, and more free than you have ever been. Some of what you call loss was actually release. Some of what you grieve was never meant to follow you into this next season. You did not fail because it ended. It ended because it could not grow with you. I needed you to see where structures were weak, where connections were conditional, and where patterns were unsustainable. Restoration without revelation would trap you, so I allowed clarity to come first, even though it hurt. You may still wrestle with the desire to see certain things return in their old form. That is human. But hear me. If I restored them unchanged, they would limit you. They would demand that you shrink your awareness, soften your boundaries, or ignore what you now know. That would not be kindness. That would be confinement. I am not rebuilding your life to look familiar. I am rebuilding it to function better. What comes back to you will carry the essence of what you valued, but not the dysfunction that once accompanied it. Connection will return without dependency. Opportunity will return without compromise. Stability will return without stagnation. Joy will return without chaos. The form will change because the function is improving. I am not interested in repeating what broke. I am interested in creating what lasts. Release the belief that restoration means erasing the past. The past taught you what you needed to learn. It shaped your discernment. It refined your voice. It clarified your values. You do not need to relive it to validate your growth. You are already changed. You already see differently. Trust that. So as you continue forward, allow your definition of restoration to mature. Stop waiting for life to look the way it used to. Start preparing for life to feel the way it was always meant to feel. You are not being denied. You are being prepared for a future that will not require you to abandon yourself to maintain it. And that is the restoration that truly matters. Stay with me now, because this is where clarity settles and confusion releases its grip. This is where the work that was done in you begins to reveal its purpose. What is coming back to you will not always look like what left, and that has been the source of your uncertainty. You kept watching the horizon for familiar shapes, familiar faces, familiar patterns, believing that restoration would announce itself by resemblance. When it did not, you wondered if it was still on its way. But hear me clearly. Restoration is not imitation. It is refinement. It does not copy the past. It improves upon it. It carries the essence of what mattered while removing what could not sustain you. You lost connection, and what returns will not be rooted in dependency or imbalance. It will be built on mutual respect, honesty, and shared responsibility. You lost opportunity, and what returns will not require you to compromise your values or overextend yourself to prove worth. It will align naturally with who you are now. You lost security, and what returns will not be fragile or conditional. It will be an inner stability that remains steady even when circumstances fluctuate. You lost joy, and what returns will not be fleeting excitement that crashes into exhaustion. It will be peace, deeper and quieter, but far more enduring. The form has changed because the function has matured. I am not interested in replacing what broke with another version that breaks the same way. Some things cannot return in their old shape because they were shaped by limitations you no longer carry. You see differently now. You choose differently now. You value differently now. Restoration that ignores your growth would eventually feel like regression. I will not lead you backward in the name of comfort. I will lead you forward in the name of wholeness. There is a reason the future feels unfamiliar. Familiarity often lives where patterns repeat. What I am building for you requires presence, intention, and trust in yourself. You will not need to chase it. You will not need to force it. You will recognize it by how steady you feel when you step into it. There will be less chaos, less urgency, less emotional turbulence. That may feel strange at first because you became accustomed to intensity being mistaken for meaning. But peace is not emptiness. It is alignment. I am reshaping how you measure progress, no longer by speed, approval, or comparison, but by sustainability. Does it drain you or nourish you? Does it require you to shrink or allow you to expand? Does it bring clarity or confusion? These questions will guide you now. And because of what you have learned, you will not ignore the answers. You will trust them. You are not being asked to abandon your past or pretend it did not matter. It mattered deeply. It brought you here. But it is no longer the reference point for where you are going. Your future will not demand that you relive old battles to earn new blessings. It will invite you to walk forward with steadiness, discernment, and self-respect. You will no longer be sustained by adrenaline and urgency, but by rhythm and intention. I know there is still a part of you that seeks confirmation, a sign that you are on the right path. But hear this. The greatest confirmation will be internal. You will notice how your body relaxes where it once tensed, how your thoughts quiet where they once raced, how your decisions come from clarity rather than fear. You will no longer need constant reassurance because alignment speaks for itself. This is where your identity settles. You are not the person who merely survived anymore. You are someone who understands themselves, honors their limits, and chooses wisely. That is why what comes next will not require you to shrink, silence yourself, or compromise your growth to maintain it. It will meet you where you are, not where you were. Do not rush this unfolding. There is no countdown you need to fear missing. What is meant for you is moving with you, not ahead of you. Remain present. Remain attentive, remain grounded. The clarity you sought is already forming, and the life being shaped around you will soon make sense in ways you cannot yet articulate. Stay open, stay steady. There is more ahead, and you will recognize it not by how loudly it arrives, but by how deeply it feels right when it does.